Welcome, welcome, welcome to another amazing Tuesday together with Kiki, our dear brother from Google, brother almost at a personal level. And we speak to him all day, every day, looking at how we can get the best content over to you guys to help you get your dream job, create an impact, and do what you love every day. So this is masterclass number 6 of 22 masterclasses that we are building exclusivity for Study New South Wales and the international student community that is currently in Australia or watching from overseas. This session right now is recorded, so it is going to be also uploaded to YouTube that you can watch it many times, share with your friends, family, anyone that wants to improve their resume so that they can get the dream job. So if you want to turn your cameras on and leave your beautiful smile, if you want to ask us questions, we are here to help you guys. And the more you ask us, the more we're going to help you succeed, because everyone has little questions that will help them individually succeed. So please let us know. So we have today Kiki, a legend in the startup world and entrepreneurship world. He went from a long journey, if you watch his first session, of being a very successful entrepreneur across many different projects in different industries, and now has been for 10 years at Google, which is crazy because I remember when you were getting interviewed by Google. So it's like, wow. And you've done so much, worked in so many cool departments. And what I love is that at Google, when you want a position, you have to apply internally and go through the normal process. So Kiki has had many promotions. So how many interviews have you done at Google, Kiki?
Wow, that's actually a great question. I haven't counted, but at least 20 interviews in the last 10 years. Yeah, I've applied for a lot of jobs. I have to happily say that most I've gotten, or all I've gotten, which has been great. But yeah, like you said, within Google, if you want to change roles, you have to apply and go through the same process that an external candidate would. So you have to go through interviews, you have to build a resume, you have to send an application. Obviously, you can find out easier who the hiring manager is and set up a coffee chat. But other than that, you're pretty much on your own.
Yeah. And I think one of the cool things about, like, when I was even building these slides, like last year for a similar project we did for Study New South Wales, is I get a lot of resumes, same as you, and we go through a lot of interviews. So our experience of having worked on both sides, of having in the past applied for jobs, but also interviewing and looking at what makes a good CV or not. So, guys, we're speaking today from years and years and years of experience of seeing hundreds of resumes, some good ones that really stand out from not just the resume, but also the strategy. So today we're going to be talking about a very important stage of getting your dream job. But before we get started, please connect with us on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, everywhere. We share different types of content to help you throughout the week. So we do masterclasses, we've got ebooks, we've got carousels. So please connect with us. Connect with Kiki on LinkedIn. Connect with Kiara, has a beautiful Instagram page that shares all of these beautiful tips about life in Australia. So please connect with us. So today's agenda, we're going to be talking about how to write the perfect resume. What's the best format? We're going to look at exams, and we're going to recap with all of it. And then there's a beautiful gift that Kiki has created for you guys at the end. If you haven't watched last week's session, I loved it because it's a that everybody needs to forget, which is the pre-preparation before you even write your resume, is understanding, where am I going to get this job? So Kiki, I'm going to mute myself and over to you. Thank you for making time for us today and sharing your knowledge. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much, Pao. Yeah, really looking forward to sharing with you guys, at least on my experience, where I think it's going to be a really good resume. Like Pao said, I've seen a lot, I've built a lot of them, and there's some clear like do's and don'ts that I want to share with you. And since the audience today is mostly students, I'm guessing you're building your first resume for the first time. So there are a lot of things that I personally didn't know when I built my own resume. And when I look back, I still have those resumes saved up. When I look at them, I cringe inside thinking, like, I can't believe I actually submitted that for a job application. No wonder I didn't get that job. So yeah, very, very important stuff that we'll be looking after today. But first, if we go to the next one, let's do a little bit of a recap from last time, because I think this is important before you start building your resume. So just as a reminder, before you begin, there are a couple of things you need to do. So first, remember, always keep a list of the jobs that you want to apply. have the list that we talked about last time of your top 10, 8 to 10 assets that you bring into a job ready, because you'll hopefully be referencing those things when you're building that resume. And finally, if we go to the next one, remember, always look at the job requirements. So before you even start thinking of building a resume or customizing a resume, can we go to the next slide, please? Thanks. Yeah, before we start, too bad it's a little bit tricky there, but remember, most job postings will have two things. A job description, they'll have your minimum requirements and preferred requirements as well. So for example, this is a job that I found that I thought it was interesting. If I don't meet, in this case, it says 7+ years professional experience, check. If you keep going through the list and you meet the basic requirements, then you're good to go. If you go to the next one, I put just a couple examples. Yeah, again, minimum requirements should be met. And this is another example that I found from a company called Squared. They were very, very clear with the basic qualifications and preferred qualifications. That's usually what you find when you find the job posting, at least online. And like I said, you want to meet all the basic qualifications and ideally have one or two of the preferred ones. And then there's, if we go to the next one, there's also some instances when they're not very clear. Yeah, when they're not very clear on what the basic and preferred qualifications are. In those instances, you just have to use your common sense. If you're a student, maybe don't apply for a CTO or like a head of mobile business in Amazon, for example, in this case. Even though the basic qualifications are quite, I would say, how would we say this? They're a bit vague, like ability to do a wide range of things, or proven negotiation skills, or good organizational skills. I feel like everyone could have those skills, but in the end, it is a head of something job at Amazon, so maybe it's not an entry job. So obviously a lot of common sense there. But yes, that was a little bit of a recap from last time. So let's get started on the resume. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so first I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the things that we need to do. So first, we need to review those application requirements. So aside from meeting the basic requirements or preferred requirements for a job, you also need to think, what are those things that they're going to ask you from? So I remember when I applied to Google the first time, they asked for my resume. They didn't ask for a cover letter, but they asked for a written exam that I had to fulfill. So they sent me a document and I had 24 hours to send it back. And it was literally like a questionnaire of things. And it was to kind of test the GCA. I was applying for a semi-senior role when I was very junior in my career. So potentially I wanted to check that. So sometimes they'll ask you for a cover letter. Like I said, sometimes for an exam, sometimes just for your resume. So make sure you know those things. And make sure you leave time to do those. The next thing is you need to highlight your experience and achievements. Sorry, the next slide, please. Thanks. So highlight experience and achievements when you're writing your resume. What this means is don't be one of those people that just puts what your responsibilities are. Make sure you're highlighting also things that you have achieved. And usually those are the first things that people are going to look like, or hiring managers will look like when they're looking at your resume. If we go to the next one, if you're highlighting your achievements and you don't have any experience, that doesn't mean you don't have any achievements. And also, if you think you don't have any experience, maybe you don't have any working experience. But everyone's got a little bit of experience, at least if you follow through what we discussed last time, just to show that you're hungry for that job and that you have that proactive, like almost entrepreneurial mindset. You will have some experience, even if it's academic achievements, competitions, volunteer work, like we discussed last time as well. or extracurricular activities. All these things you'll have learnings from, and they're achievements you can highlight on your resume. So it doesn't matter if you're a student, if you've had or not have a job before, you definitely have achievements. So don't be afraid to call those out. The next one is create a cover letter that's tailored for the job. What this means is cover letter is not always something that you'll be required. I think as a first job, it usually is a good show, or it's a good way to summarize what the future or your future in that job is going to look like. So your resume basically talks about your past. It talks about what you've done so far. Your cover letter should talk about what you're going to do once you get that job. So it talks about your future in that company. And I think that's really valuable for a hiring manager to briefly just read about who is this person and what are they bringing to my company. And that's where your list of like your 8 to 10 assets that you're bringing to a job, it's going to come handy. I'm not saying put all 8 or 10 of them, but maybe make sure that you're calling out the main ones. This is an example of a cover letter. I think I'm not going to go and read it for you. Obviously, this deck is going to be shared with you guys afterwards. So once you get the deck, maybe have a read. But I thought this was a really good example of what a cover letter would look like. And what I said before, if we go to the next one, your resume focuses on the past, and your cover letter in the future was actually Joyce Lynn Kennedy from Cover Letters for Dummies. So anything for dummies, usually a good place to begin understanding how something works. And I thought this was a really good quote to explain.
I love as well how they put, I'll go back, I love how they put like the dot points even on the cover letter, because everyone's so time poor. You just make it simple. And I love when people send me things with the key points in bold. I'm like, that's what I should be reading it. That's really good.
Yeah, completely. Cool. Then some other things you always have to make sure that you check when you're writing your resume is, let's go through this ones quickly before we jump into the meaty bits. But basically double check that your details and spelling. I can't tell you how many times I've seen mistakes, like grammatical errors on CVs or even on documents that we've sent to candidates when that they're applying for a job, and they come back and there's wrong punctuation or wrong grammar in there, whatever it is, it just really turns off whoever is the hiring manager is for that role. And it doesn't look very professional. So make sure you do that. There's tools like Grammarly, for example, that can help you do that if you're not comfortable. But yeah, use those tools because they're very, very helpful. And then to check your contact details, you won't believe how many people put the wrong phone number or they update their email, and the hyperlink to the email takes them to whomever person they copied pasted their CV into that person's CV. So I've had in the past somebody that their email account said, like, let's say kike@google.com, which is my email, and then if you click through, it actually took you to seba@google.com. And the emails were going to that person. And same thing with the phone number. So hyperlinks, if you're using somebody else's, maybe make sure that they're taking you to the right place. And then when you send your application, I think the next one. When you're sending your application, you don't forget to update the file names as well of your documents and name them accordingly if you're being asked to send more documents than just your resume. So resume, call it resume, your name, and then the date, for example. Same thing with your cover letter or any additional documents. So these little details definitely make a big difference. And then finally, you prepare for the call and the follow-up. And I think this is a really important one. So actually, if you go to the next one, personally, what I like to do before I prepare to the call and the follow-up, which will touch base on the next session, is to make a list. So I just made this list of some jobs that I found that I thought were interesting. So let's say if I've applied to these 4 roles, I'll put the link to the role online. the point of contact to whoever I've spoken to in the organization. Usually the role of that person would be good as well, but let's assume these are all recruiters. Then the email subject, just to quickly find that email thread on your emails. Yeah, what's the CV that you send? So each CV should be customized for the role. That's really important. And you definitely want to quick reference that back to that CV, the date you applied, and then some notes. So your notes can be whatever you want. Usually I find it helpful to put a brief summary of what we discussed or just what the state of that interview is. So I think those are the main things you should consider when you're writing your resume. But now let's go really to what we're all here, which is what should a resume look like? Okay. So I'm going to make it very, very simple for everyone. There's something called the ATS, which is the applicant tracking system. Most people haven't heard about it, but basically it's a tool that recruiters are using to eliminate, or to rather to rank applicants and see if they're actually suited for a role. So usually used for big companies, all sorts of companies are using it, but I'm not calling this out because I think you should be concerned about ATS and being in that 70% of applicants that get eliminated before the CV reaches the hiring manager. I think the ATS should be called out because the format that that it follows is actually really, really powerful, and it's widely recognized and widely used by all hiring managers and on all jobs, basically. I think CVs have stayed the same for a really, really long time. And so I'm not here to tell you like do something very creative and very cool. I'm rather just here to tell you this is what most CVs look like, what good CVs look like as well. And I think you should, as a student, try to follow this framework. So essentially there are, let's see, there are 5 things you should consider. So number 1 is the order and label chronologically. So what this, I'll show you a CV because obviously like these things I'm just talking about, it doesn't really help you if you don't have a CV visually in front of you. That's always a lot more powerful. But let's just quickly recap what are the things that you should look at. So order and label chronologically. So your work, your education, or your experience in your education, and then maybe some skills that you have, that sort of thing, for the sections. Then if we go to the next one, so use the job-related keywords on every application. So every application that you're looking at is going to have those minimum and preferred requirements. So if there are things in there that you've done or that you feel that match that application, don't be afraid to use those keywords because they're going to stand out when the hiring manager who probably wrote that job description, it's going to stand out if you have those minimum or preferred qualifications. So if you're applying for, let's say, an office job, then a self-motivated, organized, multitasker, those are kind of buzzwords that you might see in the job description. Make sure you somehow put that into your resume. If you're applying for a developer job, then can you write in C++ or Python or whatever it is? If you're solution-oriented or problem solver, like if these are, like, look for those keywords in the job description that might help you bump up that resume. And then there's like the ATS friendly fonts that I can't tell you. It's not super important, I guess, that you stick to these, but these are the recommended fonts to make it more agreeable to the eye. Like, forget about those Times New Roman, or sorry, not Times, the Comic Sans, or those funky Halloween looking, like, just don't try to get creative with your resume. Like, if it works, and for most people to like have that standard and that template, then try to go with that. And then finally, save and share in a PDF or a doc format, because most all of the other formats won't be recognized by the ATS system. So
It's interesting you're saying that, Kiki. We had a friend of ours coming in to do a face-to-face CV session at Account Spinners a few weeks ago, and she said that it's very common for people to design it and screenshot it, and if you turn it into an image, none of these systems will read. So if you're really creative and you're doing it on Photoshop, like the system won't read your words, and then automatically your CV gets eliminated, and it could have been the best CV with the right words, the right font. So the format that you save is vital these days, because a lot of it is automated technology in Australia. It's very important.
That's interesting. I actually haven't had an image CV come across yet, but I would hate that, because even just having to type the email of the person or the phone number to call them, you can't copy paste things. You can't do Command F. Even like forget about ATS automatically eliminating you because they can't pick up anything. Like even the person reading the CV, you're just making it extra hard, and you shouldn't. You should do the opposite of that. So let's go to the next bit. So before showing you what a good CV looks like, I personally always like to start with what shouldn't I do. So let's quickly run through some of the horrible things that can happen. So the first one is spelling mistakes. It just doesn't look professional. If you're a server, don't put server or whatever it says there. Just make sure you proofread. I personally had a spelling mistake once in a CV, and it was immediately called out by the hiring manager, and I was very, very embarrassed. Luckily, it was for an internal position, and I knew the hiring manager. But yeah, it just didn't make me look good at all, which is very unprofessional. Again, going back, the next one to funky fonts and designs. Yeah, don't do that. Just stick to a template, especially if you're not applying for, let's say, a creative job or a design job. If you're applying for a creative job and a design job, potentially you have to submit a portfolio along with your CV. So yeah, if you're excellent at designing things, and make sure you can apply that to the CV that you're submitting. But again, not in an image like Pao said, and just try to make it look professional, or make it look like it belongs to the company that you're applying to. I think Pao had a really good example of you had a friend that applied to Spotify or something.
No, that wasn't my friend. That was all over the media. This girl turned her CV. I'll show it next time. She turned her CV into the Spotify account. Looks, it was like black with the green fonts. It was just amazing. And she didn't email it. She tweeted it and tagged the CEO of Spotify globally and the hiring manager. And it was for an unpaid internship. And she ended up getting hired. And it's just genius. But in saying that, now that I'm thinking, there's no way she could have designed it beautifully on a Word document. So the system would have automatically killed. So she had to find a different way of getting the attention. And I think this is an important part as well. Is how can you make your CV like work on the system, but also like just catch people's attention. So whether it's like just changing a little bit of a color, like in Australia, we don't use photos, but just what can you use to catch the attention? I had someone very smart from Germany once applying for a job, and he sent it to me on email. I remember he sent it on 4 channels: LinkedIn, email, Facebook, and a 4th channel. I can't remember what it was. He gave like 15 minutes between each one of them. And it was impossible not to listen to the noise that man had created. And he ended up getting a job for a job that we weren't even, there wasn't a job that existed. He created a job for him because he was just so inspired by what we did, but he sent it in an innovative way, which sometimes I see I get a lot of resumes on one channel, and then it's a lot. I see people trying really hard. Like a letter is the channels on how they're getting my attention. I think it's really cool. And that's what this girl at Spotify did. We'll show it to
you. Yeah, I think that getting how you show your CV is definitely important. I'd say most cases, or 90% of cases, you usually just find a job description online, you have a template resume, and then you submit that. But yeah, like there's lots of websites and stuff where you can find good templates, but yeah, we'll get to that at a later stage. But yes, anyway, so going back to things that we should try to avoid. Yeah, the other thing that I think is good to highlight is the achievements, like we mentioned before. Most people will just put what their responsibilities are. You need to highlight what are the things that you either learned or that you achieved doing that job. So don't be Christina Jacobs and just list the number of things that you work on. Maybe also mention, like, this is a good and a bad example of an experience bullet. So developed a new sales strategy generating $4,700 in revenue. So that's a good way to show what your achievement was. When you say responsible of increasing sales, that's just a job description. So a hiring manager wants to know that you're going to do a good job, not that you've done that job in the past, you know? And then the next one, it's not your biography. So I try to make it, so like, don't make a 10-page CV or even a 3-page CV if you're a student or if you're applying for entry jobs. If you're somebody here is like way more senior, or they've had like more jobs than that, I guess, broadcast a different set of skills, then it might be worth having more than one page, but really has to be justifiable. I was just telling Kara before we started, I've had 4 companies in my life, and there's only one of them in my CV. Even though another one of them I actually learned from the most because he was a failed company. But I just don't have space for it because I don't want to make it a biography. I'm happy to talk about it if it comes up or if I find it relevant during an interview. But in reality, what a hiring manager is looking at is that they want somebody that's had the experience or that has the experience to do the job that they are posting, and also that they're doing really well, and they can only tell that through the achievements. And they want to have it in a concise way as well. Like, nobody wants to sit there and read a 7-page resume when you've got 20 resumes to go through. Paula, I think, is nodding because she's getting a lot of resumes all the time.
The crazy thing with resume, I'll go back to what you have here, and it just goes, so for example, this person, so Christina, she's customer service, responsible for receiving calls from customers, stalk and updating client. Like, that's obvious. It's common sense when we read that. It's just like, if your job is customer service, if you don't do this, you're getting fired in day one. But talk about like how you retained and how you developed a new system, or I don't know, even maybe like got promoted within 3 months, and that shows that you're going above and beyond. So don't, what Kiki is saying, don't put your job description as the key points, because we know just from like when someone sends me like digital marketing or receptionist, like, you don't have to say what you did in the reception. It's common sense that you greeted people, you know? But it's like, what have you done unique? That's what we need to see. And I love saying dot points, 3 dot points. That's it. It's like, just title, 3 dot points. Yeah. The easiest way for us to just skim through it.
Yeah, that's a great call up. And then, yeah, so I guess now what everyone wants to see, which is, what does a good resume look like? So this is actually a real resume that I've pulled up. Pau actually knows Seba. He's a really good friend of mine from high school. So actually, I have a little bit more history with him than I do with Pau, whom I went to uni with, because I actually went to uni and high school with him. So don't be jealous, Pau. But yeah, so Seba, he applied to Google 12 times and didn't get a job. And on the 12th time that he works at Google now, by the way, he's been at Google for about 7 years, like 6 or 7 years. And I referred him. And the first couple of times that he applied, he didn't tell me because he was a little bit embarrassed. On the 11th time that he applied, or the 12th time, he told me, and he's like, okay, I've applied a couple of times. I've been rejected. I just really, really need your help. So we sat down. We went through his resume, but also we prepared for the interview. And when we went through his resume, there were a bunch of things that we really focused on. So as you can see, it's a very normal template. It calls out very well. Like if you look at it immediately, you already know right away where to go to for his experience, for his education, what skills he has, and references. Like it's just very well called out. It's in chronological order. It's very clean, and he did put a photo there, but it's not your typical photo either. So it does stand out a little bit, but not in a way that it's tacky or distracting for the hiring manager. So I quite liked what he did there, and that actually does look like him. If we go to the next one, so I've just called out some of the things that I thought that he did really well in this one. So first one, the summary. At Google, we don't really do cover letters, at least not in any of the jobs that I've ever applied to or heard of. If the job you're applying doesn't do cover letter, don't be afraid to add summary. Don't add a 3-paragraph summary, but if in 1 paragraph you can sort of set the tone of who you are, I think that's pretty powerful in a way. So in this case for Seba, he states what his job is, where he lives, some of his experience, that he's had international experience as well, that he's an entrepreneur, all the things that really call the attention of a hiring manager, because he sets the tone of who he is as a person, but also his way of thinking. Then if you go to experience, you can see it's very much in chronological order, and he doesn't just list. So he's a co-founder and digital strategist at Digital Meet, which was the company that he owned before Google. It was an agency, and he doesn't just list his responsibilities. He says, in just over a year, founded and expanded an agency, and an agency's research and strategy department generating over $1 million in sales. So immediately he jumps into an achievement. Then identify and developed opportunities, then led the development of a Techo's digital strategy. So already a well-known digital strategy of a well-known company in Chile. He calls out that he was the lead and development in that strategy. He calls out his key accounts that he achieved, that he helped generate for the company. So very well stated. Didn't go into necessarily just the job responsibilities, but went straight to the achievements. Like I said, everything chronological order, correctly labeled sections, so beautifully done for the ATS system. And then it's customized as well. So the first bit was a little bit of what he did in the past, but then there were certain skills required for the job that he applied to. And then in the skills bit, which usually you won't necessarily find the skills part in a CV the way that he's done it. I personally don't use that format. But in this case, the things that he added were very relevant to the role. So you see, most people would have languages somewhere around. He put languages on their skills because the job was covering Chile and Brazil in an American company. So the 3 languages was really important. He needed to have certain technical capabilities with HTML, CSS, Photoshop, etc. So he doesn't just call those things because they were actually words that were called out in the job description. So he used them in the CV to make sure that when the hiring manager that wrote that job description reads the skills bit, then he's like, holy shit, this guy actually covers pretty much everything in my basic requirements and covers almost everything in my preferred requirements as well. Because I can tell from his skills that he's had not just the experience, but he's brave enough or confident enough in those that he'll put it in his CV. And then finally, references. Some people will put them there. Other people will put a phone number or names or something. The way he did it as well. And this is, again, going back to last session, like make sure you've worked on your social persona and your online presence. Having those references in LinkedIn helped him because just with a quick link, with a quick click through on his reference bit, the hiring manager, the recruiter, can go straight to his LinkedIn profile where there's commentary from people that he's worked with in the past that have really good things to say about him. So they don't immediately need to call anyone, or they can if they want to, but they don't need to go above and beyond. So he's made it very, very easy for both the recruiter and the hiring manager to not just find the right information in his CV, but also outside of his CV. So right contact information, links with hyperlinks working perfectly. Very, very well done CV, I believe. And this CV is actually from 2014 or 15, if I remember correctly. 2014, actually. So yeah, again, you don't have to do anything extraordinary. It can be something as subtle as a caricature like he did here with his photo, or it could just be a very, very well put together CV that I personally would love to read this CV if it landed on my desk, because it's just so easy and so well explained and easy to reference. Obviously, Seba had some experience. If we go to the next one, there's also another example of somebody in a relatively entry job. So again, very, very simple, only 2 jobs to call out. So they've added the experience on one side, but then the skills and education on the other side. In this case, the education potentially is not something that's going to be very very regarded by or not too necessary for the job. But on the other hand, maybe this job did require experience in that specific job position. So she's added that because that's what really, really matters, and that's what stands out. So if I'm hiring an administrative assistant or a secretary, this person clearly, that's what her career is on. And I almost don't care what the education and awards and skills are. But if I do, then I can see that on the side as well. And it's so simple and so easy to go to it that I might actually go through that bits as well. And again, every job has skills, achievements to call out. And if you're a student, you've had achievements through your student career as well. So don't be afraid to call those out, as this person does on her CV. So those are the 2 CVs that I personally really like, or rather the format that I think that you should follow. So just to recap, let's go back to then, what is a good resume? So it's something that's easy to read. Hopefully you're using the ATS framework to build that CV, completely error-free, and please customize, even if it's just a little bit. You want to have some of those keywords from that job description in your CV if you feel that they're relevant to your experience, or if you feel that you can actually fulfill those, obviously. And brief, it has to be short. Couple things like, don't be afraid to, if you've had 20 different projects you worked on in uni that you're really proud, then pick the top 3 or the top 2. Don't call out the 20, because it just shows that you're trying to fill up space, and that's the opposite of what you want to do. You just want to, like, the person reading the CV probably knows that you've done a lot of stuff in your past. Just call out the main things, and if you get to that point in the interview, then you can talk about more things that are relevant to that job. And then just reminder, a bad resume, what it looks like. So you don't want to be disorganized or have mistakes or distracting graphics, like we said before, or fail to highlight those accomplishments. Eventually that resume won't get you the job. And then just to wrap up before we jump into questions or anything like that, I had a little gift for you guys. So these are 2 templates that, so I've paid for these and I've licensed them to use for this occasion. So like, I actually did that from my pocket. So I just wanted to have something to give to you guys, save you some time from actually trying to find trying to find the perfect template. There are two templates here that, from the many templates I saw, I thought these two were pretty powerful. They follow the correct format. They're very easy and simple to use, and it clearly states where you need to have your achievements, your chronological order for your experience, your education, your skills. If you find a better one, feel free to use that, but these ones are ready to go. You can just make a copy and make your own edits, or download and do them on, well, they're on Google Docs, so you probably want to work on that. If you don't have that, then just download them and do it on whatever platform you use. But yeah, that's my take on resumes. I hope you found that useful, and especially these templates, feel free to use. And yeah, any questions or anything?
Cool. So now if you guys want to unmute yourself, I'll just see who's logged in here, and then I'll go back. So we've got Angelique, Daniela, Felicia, Govir, Juan, Maigun, Mark is still with us, Naomi, Nguyen, Paul, and oh my God, I have no idea how to pronounce the last name, but hello. Who has questions? Guys, this is your one and only opportunity to ask Kiki all of your amazing questions, or if you want to share your screen and show your resume as well, or if you want to next week download, I'll go back to sharing the screen on this page, the very important page. So if you guys want to download and maybe bring it over to us, and then the coming Tuesday, we can work around it. We can work and give you feedback. Felicia, how are you? If you want to unmute yourself and turn on your camera. Hello, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Hi. Good, thank you. How are you? Yeah. So I guess I have a question for Enrique. So I recently graduated actually from Chive, and currently writing my resume to get a job as a software developer. Junior software developer, I should say. But all of my past work experiences are in other industry, hospitality specifically. So I guess my question is, should I include all of these experiences even though they're not related to what I'm looking right now? Or is it going to help me, or is it not going to help me? Yeah. So that's
You're on mute, Kiki. You're on mute, Kiki. We can't hear you.
Thank you. Yeah, now it's back. I'm back. That's actually a really good question. Thanks for that. My initial thought right away would be, yes, it's important and it will help you. If you have, let's say you had 10 different hospitality jobs, like you don't need to put all of them, but what you could say is maybe call one out and say how long you've been working in hospitality, or even just that it's been hospitality. But what you could do is try to find in hospitality, in the work that you've done, how is that going to help you in that future role? So is it understanding the customer, understanding different perspectives? Is it resilience? Is it like there even attitudes that you can pick up from a job? And again, you don't need to call it all out, but if there's something that you feel that you learned in those jobs that could be relevant to what you're applying, even working with people with different perspectives or solving conflict with colleagues, like you're still working with people even if you're a software developer. So I think it's valuable to call out those things, and it actually, if you ask me, it would help you stand out and be somebody that's actually thought through that, and that you will be working with other people or like following instructions, like, yeah. So I'd say definitely don't need to put all of it, or go into a tangent like trying to find weird things to relate to. But there's definitely, if you really think about it, things that you learn in those jobs that will help you in any future job, because you, in the end of the day, will be working with people and will have a manager the same way that you did in your hospitality job.
All right, thank you.
No worries.
I think another great opportunity if you're starting off is volunteering. So just get a charity that you really like, or a local small business, like a little local cafe or restaurant that you order local pizza from once a month, and just go and offer them a little service. So code a website or build an app for them to order, or anything that you can do. And it's almost like you're freelancing, you're not getting paid, but then you've got something to show, and you've got the experience of beginning, middle, and end of a project, dealing with customers, getting feedback, improving. I think that's always very valuable. I think that Christians should volunteer, because it's a great way of learning. Interning is always a great way to stand on your resume, and especially if you're interning and volunteering for a cause you really care about, and then you speak from the heart. We can see that when we're interviewing, and it really elevates the opportunities. At Accountspan, we recently hired a lot of people from United Nations Youth, so they get fresh graduates from high school, and then these young university students are volunteering around 8 hours a week to United Nations. And we hired so many this year, because it just shows that they made time to volunteer for an amazing organization that is very aligned to our values. So yeah, so volunteer, get some work experience, and there'll always be a little business that wants your skills, even if you're in day one of your course. So that always works. Let me see, I've got a couple of questions here. I had the same question. Daniela said, hi, Daniela, thanks for joining us. Daniela, do you have any other questions? What kind of job are you looking for? Do you want to share with us? There is Daniela.
Right, I don't know if you can see me.
We can hear you. We can't see, but we can hear you. So Daniela, what kind of job are you looking? Oh, now we can see you.
Thanks, yeah. So I've been looking at jobs in digital marketing, because at the moment I'm doing a advanced diploma in digital marketing. Yeah, I had the same question, because all my previous jobs have been in hospitality. Although yeah, last year I had like a small contract with something related to digital marketing, but my question was like, if I want to jump to another company, would I be mentioning again all those previous hospitality jobs? I mean, because it correlates in the years, right? I don't know if I can jump from one that I did back in my country to just that one in marketing. Then probably the recruiters will ask, what happened in all those years? And I would say, well, I was in hospitality. Or should I mention that? That was my question as well.
Yeah, I still think that, like, we literally just hired somebody in my team at Google that in his CV, he didn't have any experience. He's in a very junior role. He had an internship before, but before that, he only had hospitality roles. So he put two of them. He put one waitressing and another one bartending. And I genuinely asked him, like, in the interview, what are the skills that you think you learned from your bartending days that you could apply to this job? And he had an excellent answer. He said, I learned how to deal with stressful situations, with customer care. He said in his first week, he dropped a drink on someone, and then that person went and complained to the manager. So he had to learn how to navigate that relationship with the manager, but also how to, like, make up to the customer. So again, like, even if it's just customer care, working in teams, like following instruction, like, find out, I'm not saying what to write, but think of the situations that you had to live through those hospitality days, and then try to see how that would apply to an office job in this case, and specifically to digital marketing.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
And Daniela, maybe have a look at like a platform like freelancer.com or fiverr.com, so you can get the experience, and you can put there, and you can say that you're just freelancing, because that will also boost not just your credibility, but also your experience. Or reach out to Chiara. She probably has 100 friends on her WhatsApp right now that have small businesses that need a digital marketer. Like, and that's the thing with life. Like, we can't apply for a job. We need to create the job. You need to go after what you want. Like, I was reading a book that Chiara actually gave to me over the weekend. And it was this guy that he was in the other position. He had a business and he was looking for people. He moved to New York to build the business, to grow the business there from Australia. And he advertised the job, and he wasn't getting any resumes. And when he realized, they had all gone into the spam. So maybe your CV can go into spam. So when you send the CV, find the hiring manager. They're obviously going to be like, the chance of a hiring manager not being on LinkedIn, it's like almost of -1%. Like it's almost impossible. So find a way, like do a combination of Fiverr.com, and you can do something for like $5 to $2. I don't know. The other day we hired someone that did a logo for us. We paid $120 for one of our students, and Fiverr doesn't mean you're getting paid $5. So volunteer, help a couple of international students that are starting the business, and maybe you can do it in your own language. I'm guessing you're from Latin America. Just do it in your own language. Doesn't matter. To get out there. Divide your day. There's 24 hours in it between getting money from your paid job, applying for a job, volunteering, elevating a resume. Think like an entrepreneur when you're applying for a job as well. So many opportunities out there, but go out there. I'm sure it is 6 p.m. today. I'm sure that if you go online, you will find at least one little job that will pay you online tonight. I'm sure. If you create your portfolio, like it's impossible. And if you're scared about doing it in English, or you just want to do Instagram, just be clear there. Just go, I'll do it for Colombian Instagram business accounts. That's it. Go niche, but at least you've got something in there. And yeah, and then you contact us tomorrow, and then we'll celebrate your win, because I'm sure you win a lot.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else has a question for us? That was a really good question as well. Anyone else? I'd love to see you bring them in, and then we can look at them together next Tuesday at this time. Cool, guys. So please connect with us, Instagram, Facebook, and remember, please, 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 to boss your future. You own your future. You can achieve anything and everything you want. You need to take action. You need to show up. You need to ask the questions. You need to download these templates. You need to go out, come in, test, and next week come and give us feedback on how it went, and we'll help you guys get your dream job. Big hugs, and we'll see you guys next week. And
thank you, Rike.
Thank you, Kia.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for everybody.
Thank you.
Big
See you next week.
Thank you.